Hey guys, so 2023 has been an amazing reading year. I read over 60 books and I want to tell you about my 6 favorite books that I read this year. And if you're new here, I'm Elsa. I live in Ottawa, Canada. I share vlogs, lifestyle reading and self-improvement content. And if you like the sound of that, you should definitely subscribe and check out some of my other videos after this one. And if you're not new, it's nice to see you again. I have a pile of books down here which you can't see, but we're going to jump straight into it. I'm not going to mess around, I'm just going to tell you about the books, and I'm so excited because I love talking about books I love. First up, we have Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is a new adult fantasy romance. It has games to the death, a girl without powers in a magical world. It has vampires with wings, warring factions, politics, enemies to lovers, royalty. It is so good. I am so happy. I've seen so many people talking about this in their end of year wrap-ups, and it was really popular in the summer, and then I kind of didn't hear people talking about it as much when the hype with like Fourth Wing and other books built up. Seeing people's end of year wrap-ups, people are still loving this book, and I'm so happy about it because I adored it as well, and I loved Carissa Broadbent's writing, and this was a book I just absolutely could not put down. I absolutely flew through it. I adored the world building and the characters. This book had so much to keep me hooked. It was so fast paced. I don't want to tell you too much because I do just love going into books blind with kind of like vibes. It's basically this girl who enters this like Hunger Games style tournament. She is the adoptive daughter of this vampire king, but she is a human, and she basically wants to win the tournament and get a wish from a god, which you get if you do win the tournament. And the tournament is kind of based around the moon phases, and I believe there are 6 games within the tournament over 6 weeks. But because there are so many different tournaments and games, it is just so fast paced and there is always something going on, and I could not put it down. And I also flew through the second book immediately after this. Even though they're quite long books, I don't think they feel that long, and it is so good. And I also believe they're on Kindle Unlimited. I absolutely sobbed, I laughed, I had the best time reading this. This is the indie version, but I believe now Carissa Broadbent's actually picked up a traditional publishing deal for this series, which is so good. So I think it has similar but slightly different covers now, which is so cool. And especially with the Hunger Games resurgence happening recently, if you're into the Hunger Games, if you're into any fantasy romance, particularly enemies to lovers books, you will love this. Next up, we have Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and I've seen so many people talking about this in their end of year wrap-ups as well, and that is so great. I feel like this is a lot of people's favorite Ali Hazelwood book, and it is definitely mine as well. It is a contemporary STEM romance. It is academic rivals to lovers and opposites attract in Grumpy Sunshine. This book was just so much fun, and I have to admit, when it was announced on Ali Hazelwood's Instagram, I was so excited because the main characters are called Jack and Elsie, and if you don't know, my name's Elsa and my boyfriend's name is Jake, and I was like, that is such a coincidence. So I was so excited to pick this up, and it definitely lived up to my internal hype. I've rated all of Ali Hazelwood's books 5 stars. I'm obsessed with her writing, and it's just so feel good and so comforting, and I just adore the story she writes and the way she crafts characters. I'm really excited because she has a fantasy release coming up in the new year, I think really soon. I thought the characters were really unique and well written, particularly the female main character. She is a very people-pleasing type of character. It's really interesting to see that dynamic, how she works through that and all the things that come up because of that, because she has like an awkward time in social situations basically. I also love the university setting. It's post-grad academia, and there's a lot of academic politics because Jack, the guy in this book, wrote an article that basically tore down the type of physics that Elsie, this character, works in. So there's a really interesting dynamic, and I just love this book, and Ali Hazelwood's writing is amazing as always. The next book I want to talk about is the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silvers. So not a book but a series. I don't have it with me physically because I've been reading them all on Kindle Unlimited on my Kindle. I am going to get the last book in the traditional paperback when that comes out in the new year. I really want to have at least one paperback from my favorite series. But yeah, I want to talk particularly about Powerless by Elsie Silver, which I think is my favorite in the series so far. I've only read 3, so this is the 3rd book in the series, and the reason I'm putting off reading the others is because I don't want the series to end basically. But the Chestnut Spring series is a cowboy rural small town romance set in Alberta in Canada, which I love because where the book is set, I have literally been to. Obviously they're made up, but like the areas. I drove from Calgary to this town called Fernie, through the Rockies, through all the ranch land in Alberta. But this was the year when I discovered this series, and I discovered Elsie Silver, which is now one of my favorite all-time authors. And I love that these books are set in Canada. Living in Canada myself, it is just so fun reading that. This favorite is about the whole Chestnut Spring series, but I'll talk particularly about Powerless, which is a childhood friends to lovers, where the main characters are a ballerina and a hockey player. So cute, and there's a super big found family aspect, particularly in this book, but in all the books. Elsie Silver's writing is addictive and so immersive, and I'm a sucker for a great setting and atmosphere, which these books definitely have. I also love that the books are so interconnected. She's created this whole universe. I just love the interconnected series, and it just feels so real. Like all of these places, all of these characters feel so realistic. The stories are so beautiful brutal, and if you haven't read the series, I highly recommend you pick it up. The next book I want to talk about is The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. I have The Traitor Queen, which is the second book, in paperback. Because I love the first one so much, I picked the second one up in physical copy, but I did read the first one on my Kindle. I can't remember if it's on Kindle Unlimited or not, but it is super worth it. This is an enemies to lovers fantasy new adult romance. It is arranged marriage, and the female main character is an assassin sent to kill the male main character. This pulled me out of a reading slump right at the beginning of 2023. It was actually in my boyfriend picks my romance books video. The world building and politics are so unique, and they're really intertwined with the story. It's not just like a separate aspect, they are super meaningful, which I adore. We have two countries, the Bridge Kingdom, which is like an archipelago island nation. It's more tropical, it's really stormy, they're very like sea based, and it's really big with trade, and that is where most of the book is set. It is so unique. I've never read a fantasy book with a setting like it. And then the female main character is from a more barren desert country, which is so interesting. The world building really drives the story, but it's also not too complex to understand, so I think it's really good for everyone. The romantic tension was great, and I absolutely could not put this book down. Like I said, I read the first one for a reading vlog, and then I couldn't read the second one because I had some other books to read. But as soon as I was done with that reading vlog, I had to pick up the second book in the series, which was also really good. This is a classic enemies to lovers favorite for a lot of people, so if you like that trope and you like fantasy romance, I think you'll definitely like this book. I also love that these stories, in my opinion, don't really drag. They're really fast paced, and the first two books in the series are a duology about one couple, and then I think there is a novella about this couple, I think, and then there is another duology about another couple. So I've only read the first two books in the series, but I need to pick up the other books soon. The next series I want to talk about is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi, and yes, again, this is a series, not one particular book. I've been reading all of these on my Kindle, but I do have the paperback of Ignite Me here. I first read the series in around 2013 when I was much younger, around 10 years ago, and I read the first three books in the series. I didn't realize there were novellas at the time, and at the time when I read it, it was only a trilogy with novellas. There wasn't the rest of the series. I loved it so much. This is a book I actually vividly remember reading even 10 years later. And so when I saw that all these BookTokers were hyping up the series and it had more books than the ones I had read when I was younger, I was so excited, because basically what happened with this series is it was an original like 3 books with novellas, but then Tahereh Mafi a couple years later went back and added 3 more books and some more novellas. So I think my favorite in the series so far has been Unravel Me, but like I said, I'm technically only halfway through the series. I read the first half that I read when I was younger and took a break, and I'm going to read the next half in the beginning of the new year. But the writing is so well crafted, and it is just as beautiful as I remember when I read it when I was younger. The characters are addictive to read about, and you will become obsessed with them, I'm sure. The tension and intrigue make this a book you absolutely cannot put down, and some people say it's predictable, but I don't think so. I think there are so many twists and turns that you can't expect. This book definitely held up as a book published in the early 2010s, which I'm not sure a lot of books from that era could do if you were to reread it again now. And just for some context, I read the first book in 2 days, the first 5 books in the series, so the 3 full-length books like this one and the novellas, in just 2 weeks. It is so addictive and really fast-paced and really intriguing. But I love that series, and if you didn't read it when it first came out, you should definitely check it out. I think I forgot to say this, but it is a YA dystopia with a bit of, I guess you would call it sci-fi elements. It's really good. It also has enemies to lovers, love triangle, all that kind of stuff. Okay, the last book I want to talk to you guys about is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. This is a contemporary romance set in wine country, I believe in California, and it is an opposite attracts romance with all the classic Tessa Bailey elements. I see so many people hating on Tessa Bailey books, but I adore them. I'm reading her Christmas book at the minute. I think that could also be in this video if I was filming it a bit later. This is a perfect spring summer read, and if you haven't already read this book, you should definitely add it to your spring or summer TBR for 2024. I adored the setting of a small town in a wine region. It was so perfect for that time of year. It was all to do with beautiful gardens and had warm weather vibes. It was perfect, and there's lots of like plant kind of stuff because the male main character, his family runs a winery, and the female main character, she is a gardener. Like I said, it has all the classic Tessa Bailey elements. I love her writing, it is so good, and I don't know how she crafts addictive characters in every single book, but the way she crafts them is just so amazing. Also, I love that the male main character in this book was kind of a bit of a control freak. I like related to it a bit too much, and like I said, it's opposites attracts, so the girl like is super go with the flow and he's super control freak kind of vibes, and I loved it. Anyway, that is 6 books that I absolutely love this year. I would love to hear one of your favorite reads down below. Tell me about one of your favorite books, and yeah, I hope you have a really good reading year in 2024. I hope I have a really good reading year in 2024. There are so many books I'm excited to read, and yeah, if you like this video, please do like and please do subscribe, because I'd love to see you guys next time, and thank you again just so much for watching.